guys, it's Joel here from the Home Recording Network. I got a question on how I usually set up my sends and buses and my tracks. So I just thought I'd make a quick video showing exactly how I use sends and buses in my mix. So I just have some basic drum tracks here, so I'll just play that. So just some basic drums in the song, right? So I usually want to have all my drums going to a single fader or a single track so that I can, mix them all together, maybe EQ them or compress them. So I'm going to open up the mixer here and I'm going to select all the tracks, and then down here where we have where the tracks are going, stereo out, so they're all going to the master bus. Well, I want to make them all go to the same track, so I'm just going to select, pick bus. I'm going to send them to bus 1, and it's going to create this aux 1 down here. And we're just going to name that drum bus. So now if we go back and look at the buses, we can see now bus 1 is being used as our drum bus. But we want to have other buses, right? We're probably going to want to send all our guitars in the song to a final guitar bus, vocals, anything like that. So now I have this drum bus, and I could use this fader to maybe lower or raise the volume of all these drums. But there's one problem. So I got my drum bus down here, but if we look in the arrange window here, we don't see that bus. And I like to have my buses shown here because if I'm in the arrange window, it's nice to be able to click down here and go to the plugins on the bus or whatnot. So if we open up the mixer and we right click on this, we can hit create track. And now it's going to create this drum bus here, and I'm going to put it at the end of all my drums so I know this is where all these tracks are heading. So now maybe I want to make these drums sound a little bit more exciting. Maybe I want to beef them up so we can actually throw a plugin on here, and I'll put on one of these Pultecs, and maybe we want to put in some 60 hertz for some low end. Maybe we want to exaggerate the 12K area. So now maybe I want to add an effect to this drum kit. Maybe I want to add like a huge reverb sound or something to this. So that's when we use effect sends. So let's say I want to make a reverb sound. So I'm going to open up the mixer once again, and maybe I want to add this reverb to the kick microphones and the snare microphone. So I'm going to select those, and above the output of the track, we can insert a send. So I'm going to select this, send these to a new bus. So I'm going to send them to bus 2, and then it's going to create this aux 2 down here. So once again, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to name it drum verb. And then I'm going to also create a new track because I like to see it in my arrange window up here. And I'd like to put the sends at the end here. So we're going to put this drum verb after the drum bus. But now if we solo this drum verb, we're going to find out there's no sound coming out. I can't hear anything. So what I'm going to do is select all the tracks, and with send, you get to choose how much of the signal you want to send to that bus. So maybe I want to send it at unity gain. So I'm going to put it all the way up to unity gain. So now if we solo this drum verb, it should just sound like the normal drums. So it's just those kicks and snares, and There's no effects on it yet, so it's just the normal sound of the drum tracks. So there's a couple options we have with these sends. So I'm just going to throw some plugins on this track because it's going to make this easier to explain. So I'm just going to throw on the SSL channel strip. And now that is across all four of these tracks. Okay, great. Okay, so with these sends, we have a couple options. So if we come over and click on the send, we have this pre-fader, post-fader, and post-pan. Let's go over pre-fader first. So I'll select that. So with pre-fader, it's going to take into account any of the plugins we have on this track, but it's not going to take into account the pan information or the volume information from the fader. So basically, if we have this kick panned all the way to the right and turn down a bit, this send is still going to go over to the drum verb, but it's going to be at this unity gain we've turned up to, and it's going to go right up the middle. So any changes we make to the track below this send aren't really going to affect the signal that's being sent over to the drum verb. And the reason you might want to do this is because you want to have a static mix sent to a send maybe. Maybe if you end up turning this kick up in the song, you don't want any changes being sent to this mix that you have sent to this drum verb. The next choice we have is post fader, which means it is going to take into account the volume of this fader when sending over to the drum verb. But it's not going to take into account the pan information, so it's going to send it right up that middle. If you choose to use post pan, this means it's going to take into account the volume fader here as well as the pan information before it sends this over to the drum verb. I find myself using post pan for most things, but if you have a need to skip that fader or the pan information, you can use one of the other two options. So let's add some sort of reverb to this. So I'm just going to maybe add the Verb Suite Classic. And let's just pick a drum reverb. So we'll go with Realistic Drum Room 2, and we'll turn up the decay a little bit, and let's just see what it sounds like. So we just have this drum verb soloed. One quick little tidbit of information here is whenever you're using an effect send, you always want to have the wet dry knob all the way over to the wet because we only want to hear the wet signal. We don't want any of the dry signal in these tracks because we're going to be blending these effects with the dry tracks. So just remember that. Always keep any delays or reverbs all the way over to the wet side. So now let's get this drum reverb dialed in nicely with our drum track. So I'm going to unsolo the drum verb, and I have all the tracks selected that are going to this drum verb. I'm going to bring the volume all the way down. I'm going to play everything and just bring this up until it sounds nice with the drum kit. Probably a little bit too much, but just for tutorial purpose, we'll leave it there. So lastly, I have this drum bus just going to stereo out, which is the master bus. But I like to send my effects sends, at least for drums, to this drum bus because I want everything ending up at this drum bus. This verb is part of the drum sound. So I'm just going to go to the drum verb, and I'm going to make the output the drum bus. So now when we solo this drum bus, it's going to have this drum verb in the sound. So that's basically it. That's how I use buses and effect sends in my mixes. And these can really add up because I might have a bunch of effect sends for the drums, maybe a parallel compression, maybe some sort of extra reverb. And then it can really add up on guitars too. I might have two guitars in the chorus and I want to send those to their own bus. And I might have two guitars in the verse and I send those to their own bus. So then those buses end up at a final guitar bus. But this is really how I keep my tracks organized. And it also allows me to throw plugins on these buses and really fine tune the effects or the buses. Guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide. I made this for you guys so you could start getting your mixes sounding better. There's a lot of great information in there. And be sure to reach out if you have any questions or if you need any help with your mixes. Thanks.